and let's let it unfold.
Good evening and welcome to Mountain Bears. I'm Aeson Knight, and of course I'm sitting down with the Techy with the Moses, Techy Joe. How are you, sweetheart?
I'm doing okay. How are you this evening?
A little over-energized, probably highly enough caffeinated, in a decent mood. Got to experience a new battle. You know, that's the reason we're late. It's my fault. I went to a team battle that was a little bit longer. But it's been a busy week in general for the both of us. You want to talk about what I've had you up to?
Building a Victorian sim from scratch. Also, we bought another sim.
We bought another sim. This one's going to be the party sim.
Yeah. So this is all related to the Chimeras and Obsidian and the stuff going on over there. So we're getting that all set up. It's been an experience.
Well, it has. It's been fun. I blew your mind, scared the fuck out of you. All within like 3 minutes.
Yeah. So if anyone was wondering if Aeson is the type not to press the big red button, he is not the type that will not press the big red button. He will press the big red button and go, "What's this do?"
The big red button, the big green button, the big white button. I'll push them all. Don't matter. This is how I learn. Oh.
Yeah, this is how he learns. Like I'm about to send a message to our landlord going, "No, I understand he pays you, but no." No.
Hey, I had made a mistake. It said revert. It should have reverted the mistake. No.
It did not. It did not.
It brought the land back
to
the
save point.
Yes.
Of where to revert to. So yeah, it reverted back to the dawn of time.
Yes.
Granted, we're like 72 hours into the timeline here, but still, dawn of time.
Yeah. But we have a beautiful town, a beautiful lake. You're building me woods, and then we'll put the stables together.
Yes. Many things going on, and a few things to get caught up with for the weekend.
Yes.
I'm in the morning not going to really be able to do much because I've got to get a client thing caught back up.
That's okay. Yeah. You know.
It's been a wild month.
Mm-hmm.
So
and it has, but this was one of my goals this year, was to own 2 sims. I wanted 3, but I got told, why don't we just go for 2? So I was like, okay, 2 is it.
Yeah, let's step in that direction instead of, running in that direction. Because I mean, it's one of those things, especially two of them need to break even or get close to breaking even. To make the other one more like, we're just really paying for 1 cent.
Right. Which, FIO has been doing really well, and so we have the ability to move forward with my new passion and entertain both my passions. And I was talking with my team, and yes, I have a team for Second Life. They're amazing. They'll pop in here in a minute. And it's like, this should be down to, we're ready for this.
Yeah. We're getting stuff built together, or getting things built up, and so yeah, my current. I'm really having to embrace the idea of just get it down and worry about making it better later.
Yes.
Because that's kind of the thing right now is like just get it all out
Right.
and okay, there's an idea
Mm-hmm.
and like we can go back and make it prettier.
Yeah. And we can upgrade and change and decorate and all that. Like we've done this with Farrell and get me and my clubs up and running, get the real estate moving, and then we'll figure out the rest.
Yeah, yeah. So like today I was working on a Victorian garden, and it's like just arrange the papers as you roughly want them,
Mm-hmm.
and worry about the are they exactly where they need to be later. Like
Yep.
this is the plan.
Mm-hmm.
This is not the execution. Like hopefully we'll get it better and do more things as
Mm-hmm.
because we've got about a month to build this one. Um, please tell me we have a month to build this one. Like that was what was in my head.
Um, I need it done by the 21st at the latest.
Of this month.
Yeah.
Okay. Alrighty then. So
At least so that I can turn it over to him and have him come in and put in all the stuff. So
oh
fishing.
yeah, but theoretically we're almost there already.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's okay, but yeah, no, don't scare me like that.
Okay.
Is that yeah? As long as the big chunks are done for him to come in and put in the game systems,
Mm-hmm.
everything else like that's he just needs a general idea where on the map this goes here, that goes there, and it's kind of already pretty friggin' obvious. Um,
Right.
at this point, like this is this and this is that.
Right.
Um, so yeah.
Hello, my genius.
Oh, he's gonna make me hurt him on air. You just
But
don't
I
like. You
do
don't
like.
need it all done by the 21st.
Yeah. But I like the garden walls. I think we have another use for those.
Oh, you're gonna do another use for the garden wall.
Uh huh.
All right.
Arena.
Oh well, yeah, we can totally do that for the arena.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's like, I know nothing. I know nothing.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about what happened because the Earth picked up a little speed.
It did, it did, it did. So, that leaves. This is better you than me. So that leaves the Daily Mail posing a question. So what would happen if the Earth continues to spin faster, stronger hurricanes, disastrous earthquakes, and catastrophic flooding? Expert says. So scientists have warned that the summer could include some of the shortest days of your entire life. On July 22nd and August 5th, experts predict the day will be 1.38 and 1.51 milliseconds shorter than average, respectively. This is because the planet's rotation has entered an unexpected period of acceleration, shaving a millisecond or so off the length of a solar day. But what would happen if the world just kept getting faster? Given that a blink takes 100 milliseconds, you're unlikely to notice any big changes for a long time. However, scientists say that unchecked acceleration would eventually lead to disastrous consequences. If Earth were spinning just 100 miles per hour faster than it does now, the world would be hit by stronger hurricanes, catastrophic flooding, and the collapse of satellite networks. And if the world were to double its speed, it would likely be the end of life as we know it. On average, it takes the planet 24 hours or 86,400 seconds to complete one full rotation, which is called a solar day. Small fluctuations like the location of the moon or volcanic eruptions can shift this around a millisecond in either direction, but the rotation is generally fairly stable. Because the Earth is a sphere, its circumference is smaller near the poles than at the equator, so the planet's surface moves faster the further you get from the poles. Someone standing at the equator is rotating in space at around 1,037 miles per hour, 1,668 kilometers per hour, while somebody in London is only moving at about 646 miles per hour. Compared to these speeds, an increase of just 1 mile per hour might not seem like a big difference. The days would be about a minute and a half shorter overall, which our body clocks probably wouldn't notice right away. Witold Frazik, an analyst at ESRI, a mapping software firm, told Popular Science it might take a few years to notice it. However, an unexpected effect is that satellites in orbit would soon be knocked out of sync. Some satellites are geosynchronous, meaning they move at the same speed as Earth's rotation to stay over the same location. If the Earth speeds up, those satellites will lose their position, and navigation, communication, and weather monitoring services would start to fail. However, some satellites carry fuel to adjust their orbit, and others could be replaced, so the results should not be disastrous. Mr. Frazik says these could disturb the life and comfort of some people, but should not be catastrophic to anybody. The bigger impact is that water would start to move from the poles to the equator due to the increased centrifugal forces. Even at just 1 mile per hour, this would cause sea levels to rise by a few inches around the equator. For cities already at or very near sea level, this could lead to devastating flooding. So, yeah, and then it goes on to talk through the 100 miles per hour faster. So if the Earth kept accelerating until it was moving 100 miles per hour faster at the equator, this would start to trigger seriously dangerous consequences. Rather than rising by a few inches, these speeds would start to drown the equator as water rushed down from the poles. Mr. Frazik says, I think the Amazon basin, North Australia, and not to mention the islands in the equatorial region, they would all go underwater. How deep underwater, I'm not sure, but I'd estimate about 30 to 65 feet. For anyone who survived the flooding, the world would start to become a much more hostile place. The solar day would now only last 22 hours, knocking our circadian rhythms out of their natural balance. The effect would be like setting your body clock back 2 hours every day without being given a chance to adjust. So, yeah, we would be talking about like places like Galveston, Texas, Grand Isle, Louisiana, Mobile, Alabama, Miami, Florida, Daytona Beach, Savannah, Georgia, and Myrtle Beach would all be several inches underwater. These are, sorry, the U.S. cities most at risk for flooding.
Yeah.
Rise in sea level. So yeah, there's it's not getting better.
No, it's getting better. We're going to see much more hurricanes, though, I think, and very much more devastating flooding like Texas had.
Yeah, well, and it's semi-related, but not exactly related. But yeah, so these are the horrible effects just if the Earth speeds its rotation tremendously.
Right.
The few milliseconds here and there isn't necessarily the worst thing to happen.
Right.
But it's not necessarily the best trend line to see, especially if we're talking year over year positive changes.
Right.
That it's getting a little bit faster.
Right.
Like again, not the worst
Mm-mm.
function here. But as you get into higher and higher rotations, it does get exceedingly bad. So yeah, so just 100 miles an hour would knock 2 hours off a day, and would basically plunge most of your coastal region under feet of water.
Yes.
Like you would have like oceanfront property very further inland.
Hey, maybe all the way up to West Virginia.
That used to be an ongoing joke about the fact that if not just like an Earth rotation event, but if global sea waters rise, you could very easily, it doesn't take that many feet
No.
until you start having oceanfront property in West Virginia. I think it's only like 100, 200 feet.
Yeah.
Like it
200 feet.
didn't take much because when you think about your east west coast and your Gulf Coast regions, um, that's for most of that going inland. It's sort of graduatedly slowly up
Mm-hmm.
until you get into like a foothill region.
Right.
So when you're like there's not a lot of outside of the foothills of North Carolina. There's not a lot of massive differentiation between the Outer Banks and
Mm-hmm.
most of North Carolina. There's a change.
Right.
It's not a lot.
Yeah.
Um, until you get into that foothills region and you start moving towards Virginia. Anyone who has made that trek on I-77 knows this. I-77, I-74. It feels like you're going straight up. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because you kind of are.
Right.
That is one of the largest elevation differences you will experience in the
Right.
state of North Carolina. Is trying to come north. You'll also have on the further extent of the state the same effect on I-40.
Right.
Um, things you know when you do this a lot
Right.
for a good decade is driving on those two roads. Is It's all kind of like you can leave the Outer Banks region and come across the state, and it's just kind of this flat, sort of lowly undulating thing until you get into the foothills region.
Right.
Um, Once you go past the car dealership,
Mm-hmm.
it's straight up.
Yeah.
It's just up and up and up and up and up. So yeah. So if you're talking about like 100-foot sea level rise,
Right.
you very easily
Right.
like take out most of the inland or the Outer Banks to inland
Right.
North Carolina in 100 feet.
Right.
Like it's not that much compared to like being in West Virginia, where like we have differences of like 1,000 feet,
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of feet
Right.
uh, at any point. Like
Right.
hi, I can leave from here and drop like 862 feet into the bottom of the New River.
Right. Right.
Like it's a massive difference.
Right.
Yeah. Anyhow.
Anywho, I think that it's going to be interesting to watch because we're picking up and it's a millisecond here, a millisecond there, a millisecond there, a millisecond here. But it adds up, you know, and it changes our environment because of this.
We've now I think gone through two stories about this, one on Tuesday,
Yeah.
one today. The thing that I'm really finding annoying that isn't in the stories is like, are
Mm-hmm.
these one-off events? Is this that accumulation? Like we're slowly eking up to that 100 mile per hour difference,
We're
uh,
eking up.
or are we just seeing weird, random sporadics that like, Earth's weird? Um,
Well, it's a gravitational pull thing, and we're eking up, like we're starting to spin faster. It's believed that Earth used to have a longer day. Um, and it's beginning to wonder why we stopped having the longer day. So now we're starting to move forward, move into a speedier point.
well, but then we're also talking about events like the what was that 20,000 year
Right.
like uh, the one cycle. I
Right.
forget what that is. It's a weird
Hmm.
eclipse cycle.
Right.
So I'm also wondering if maybe that's part of a 20,000 year cycle that
Right.
like you back up and like you get to the 10,000 year mark, you have the longest days on Earth ever, and
Hmm.
then you hit the apex of 20,000. You get that one, major longest eclipse, and that kind of resets. Like that's
Right.
the shortest day. The Earth spins faster and faster
Right.
till you hit that point, and then it's going to slow down and speed up
Right.
across that transit.
Right.
But I don't see anyone really putting those two things together. Um,
I don't think that they are. I think that more. That's going to be more journaling. It's going to be more studied stuff.
mhm.
Hmm.
Well, and potentially at the rate we're increasing, like I think we're talking potentially like what, another millennia before we really start to go. Ooh,
Yeah, we're going to see effects before that.
okay. Well, I'm sure we'll see effects along the way.
Right.
I'm saying that like the next 100 years,
Right.
we're nowhere close to a 22-hour day.
Right.
Uh, just in 100 year, like if everything continues on the trend path it's on,
Right.
you don't have any sudden, uptick.
Right.
If we just kind of keep doing this plus, a millisecond here and there over
Right.
100 years, you're really just going to be talking about, increases of a few
Right.
minutes,
Hmm.
which bad enough, um,
Hmm.
a few miles per hour.
Right.
Again,
Yeah.
not the day experience you want, but
Right.
or the Earth experience you want.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, it should leave us plenty of time if this is like a non-correcting course, as in this is just
Right.
to keep going faster and faster and faster,
Right.
um, because it's ultimately going to become a problem.
Right. And it's going to continue to be a problem. It's like, I think we got moved by the nuclear power plant in Japan going off by like 0.007 of a degree. But you see how much the weather has changed over that. We
Well,
have
yeah,
tornadoes.
there's there was a wobble
Hmm.
occurred with that, and it did spark some
Right.
unprecedented.
Right.
Because if there's like, especially specific to you, is astrology
Hmm.
and trying to accommodate
Right.
for what is effectively a near unprecedented event,
Right.
that is probably likenable to like a massive
Right.
meteor strike, that an Earth ending, that it's several, orders of
Right.
magnitude worse to get hit by a massive meteorite.
Right.
But you kind of have to interpret through that,
Right.
kind of lens of like, all right, what does that do? And
Right.
then scale it down.
Right. It
Look, we're going to
changes
be a
the
little.
directions of some things. Speeding up is going to change the directions of something. So all this comes in. Like if your grandchild was born, what, yesterday? Yeah, yesterday or Wednesday, their chart's going to be a little bit different. It may even be a couple degrees, but those degrees make major impacts into things.
Yeah, and that was the thing we were talking about on Tuesday for the
Hmm.
first of the, or well, yeah, like
Yeah.
there's going to be a little wonkiness on those charts because those
Right.
were wonky days,
Hmm.
um, for
Yeah.
Earth. Like Earth did weird shit, so your chart's going to be a little
Right.
different. Um, it
Yeah.
does make a big difference,
It makes
especially
majorly
how we
big difference.
record elements of that.
Right.
and go back to reinterpret it because it's
Right.
going to affect everyone and on a global time system.
Hmm.
That's sometimes a lot to take in.
It is, and microseconds seem like major seconds, but we see these changes. What we may also see, and I'm reading another article that was attached to this article, there may be suddenly shifts on the ocean floor that causes ships to rise that maybe sunk years ago.
Oh, so it kind of does a
Yeah,
and pushes stuff up.
yeah,
Um, interesting, interesting.
yeah.
Um,
Basically, a submarine that sunk in the 70s that apparently was a drug submarine. Yeah, it rose in the Coast Guard found it in Texas. Well, in the Gulf of Mexico. All right. So let's hop over because, water is a problem in this state, and Canal Falls PD is having an issue.
oh yeah, so the Kanawha Falls Public Service District tells State Public Services Commission it won't sign operating agreement with West Virginia American Water. This comes to us from Metro News. So yeah, the Fayette County-based Kanawha Falls Public Service District has informed the State Public Service Commission that it will not enter into a PSC ordered operation and maintenance agreement with West Virginia American Water Company because it would be illegal to do so. Kanawha Falls PSD attorney Todd Swanson sent a letter to the Public Service Commission executive secretary Thursday telling the commission the local PSD will not follow the order. The Kanawha Falls Public Service District Public Service Board held an emergency meeting on July 3rd, 2025, and reaffirmed its decision to not enter into the PSC O&M agreement, Swanson wrote. The decision was made because the PSC O&M agreement violates federal law. Kanawha Falls PSD has loan debt with the U.S. Department of Agriculture, which it said requires it to maintain control of its own system and not through a management company, which West Virginia American Water would be in this case. The Kanawha Falls Public Service District Public Service Board will not violate federal law to comply with the commission directive. Thursday's letter to the Public Service Commission said. The refusal is the latest move in a controversy that's been growing for nearly 3 years following the August 2022 Kennelton Hollow flood. The flood, along with water service problems at Mount Olive State Prison, got the attention of the Public Service Commission, and it began asking questions. The commission later determined both the Kanawha Falls PSD and the Gauley River PSD were distressed utilities and should be operated by West Virginia American Water. Gauley River PSD provides water to the prison. It gets its water from Kanawha Falls PSD. The Public Service Commission handed down an order on July 2nd calling for West Virginia American Water, quote, to immediately commence operation and maintenance of the PSDs, citing an order from the state Supreme Court. Kanawha Falls said the High Court's order is not applicable in the case because the High Court did not address the clear violation of federal law. Kanawha Falls PSD said it's open to entering into what it calls an arm's length agreement with West Virginia American Water, but it won't sign an agreement that violates federal law. Mount Olive had another water problem last week when water had to be brought to site. The problem was repaired earlier this week. Kanawha Falls said in Thursday's letter that Gauley River PSD is clearing struggling to operate its system. Kanawha Falls PSD has provided 500,000 gallons of water to Gauley River PSD this week. Kanawha Falls said that can't continue to occur. The commission cannot expect Kanawha Falls Public Service District to meet the unreasonable water demands of Gauley River Public Service District, the Kanawha Falls letter said. Oh, woo! Never let it be said that like small town boards, commissions, and like utility services are boring.
No, they're not. They're quite
Right.
interesting.
Ooh,
And what I find interesting is
ooh.
that public services are trying to farm out these places. Like they took over a few of the local ones and like takes them over, raises the rates, and really does nothing.
Yeah. Well, and we've seen this happen in our area. Like the fun part of West Virginia is we do have failing communities, and
Yeah,
with that goes their utilities as well. Is it's kind of a waterfall effect that you have this massive community 100 years ago, 50 years ago, 25 years ago, that's all pulling taxes and everyone's doing great, and then that community starts to fall apart,
right.
and with it goes all of the infrastructure because you're losing the tax money to keep improving, fixing, repairing, maintaining, and it's just one problem after the next, after the next, after the next. They just cascade into each other.
Right.
And we've seen that through a lot of West Virginia.
We have.
Um,
But like
so
Oceana, who went under West Virginia water, has not had drinkable water for almost 2 years.
it's like we're seeing it both with water systems and with sewer systems.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, like, not that the whole state doesn't have like a series of at least micro problems.
Hmm.
Because like there's the Glenwood, West Virginia
Hmm.
Public Service District. I believe that's what they call themselves. They've had issues for years,
Hmm.
um, with the fact that Glenwood Lake is not actually deep enough
Right.
to be a water source. And
Right.
every time, and it becomes this weird chicken and egg problem for them.
Right.
That in order to fix the problem, they need to stop providing water, which
Hmm.
requires a project to switch the water service to fix the problem to bring back water service. And
Hmm.
everyone ends up going, well, if you're going to do this project to switch it, then why would you switch it back? Just continue doing that. And it's
Right.
like, but you're going to kick that problem down the road. Like in short term, it's doable. Like if you
Right.
get a 3, 4, 5 year project, okay, that's doable. We can handle that.
Right.
But if you just flip it over and you don't flip it back, then you're just going to create a problem for another public service district.
Right.
You're just going to have another issue,
Right.
uh, that we can't do the
Right.
one way switch and not come back.
Right.
So ultimately, that's another project that just keeps failing.
Hmm.
Problem in that area with the lake not being deep enough,
Right.
is that ultimately the system ends up taking in a crap ton of silt off
Hmm.
the bottom of the lake, and it creates problems with water quality.
Hmm.
It's not harmful per se, but it's kind of like when you start getting low in a well. Like if you have
Hmm.
a home well service, well, pun
Right.
intended. The problems that come if your well begins to dry up
Right.
is that you start pulling all the garbage at the bottom of the well, all the loose dirt, all the icky water, and it's not pretty.
Right.
Like it's staining. It's kind of disgusting to watch flow out of your faucets, because there's silt and debris and dirt and all kinds of little
Hmm.
material in it. It's not our typical envisionment, and that's even after treating. But it's our typical envisionment of this nice, pretty, crystal clear water that
Right.
should be coming out of your faucet.
It,
Um,
it doesn't.
yeah, so like the Glenwood area has issues. We've seen that in again in our local area, another smaller community, Minden, West Virginia. actually had to be brought onto our sewage system, our
Right.
sanitary board, because that system was horribly falling apart.
Right.
And it's been a big deal for the people in that area.
Yeah.
As they were incorporated in, there was a special levy placed on their accounts, uh,
Mm-hmm.
that customer district to finance the cost of connecting them. And then it almost turned into a doubling of that levy.
Mm-hmm.
So there were residents looking at like $75 a month sewage bills as a baseline. Like,
Right.
just show up. Like, you have service for water.
Mm-hmm.
$75 a month, bare minimum, no usage. And a lot of people were freaking out, because, like, clearly it's going to be more as you use more.
Right.
Um, and it was all because you attached and financed a project to bring Mendon on to Oak Hill,
Mm-hmm.
same time that Oak Hill is already a struggling system.
Yeah.
Like, it's not failing, it's just in drastic need of repair.
Right.
And then you added on more customers, you finance the cost to get them to us. Now the struggling system, you just accelerated the timetable to get it up to speed
Yeah.
and its problems, plus increase its capacity.
Right.
So yeah,
Now, granted, we're talking about 20 feet of pipe. Like that was all the diversion was 20 feet of pipe.
it's not it doesn't sound like a lot,
Right.
to connect the two systems, but then you have all the failures that were going on through the system that
Right.
currently existed in Minden, which were pretty extreme from what it sounded like.
Right.
That basically their sewage system had just completely given up.
Right.
Um, so yeah, it's not just the 20 feet of pipe to go doink, or whatever, 20 yards of pipe, whatever. That's not the problem. That wasn't the expense. The expense is going through the rest of the community, beyond that
Right.
20 feet, and making sure that sewage isn't like spewing out of grates and shooting out of the ground.
Well,
Um,
that and like the water park was added at the same time. Like this project was supposed to be a 20 feet pipe. We were able to connect them to our system. We had the capacity to handle them. And then they put the water park in and approved the water park.
yeah, that's sometimes like the what are you thinking?
Right.
You're gonna no,
Right.
no. You have a failing system. You
Right.
cannot. You can like you have water in for the water
Right.
park. You're not thinking about the water out of the
Right.
water park and where that's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, you just like now you have a critical problem.
Right.
Like you can't do that.
Right.
Not right now, or not without the water park
Right.
potentially. Writing a hell of a check.
Right.
Because yeah, you're going to strain the system. It's
Right.
like it's great for the area. It's great to have another business come in. It's great to get the B&O and all the other taxes and the tourist dollars and all the things.
Right.
Um, but there's a fronting cost to it.
Right.
Like you have to prop the system up, or you're potentially going to have a water park spewing raw sewage up out of the ground,
Mm-hmm.
either
Right.
in the park or in the surrounding neighborhood. And let me tell you, as someone who had a father who built wastewater and water treatment systems, you don't want to know how nasty it can get when your
Mm-hmm.
sewage system fails.
Right.
Not you as an individual with your backyard and you're doing a leach field and all that. I'm talking about when you bring together an entire neighborhood, an
Right.
entire community worth of sewage into a single, or even multiple, but into like hundreds of houses into a single point.
Right.
You don't want to be there.
Right.
It's let me tell you, that is one of those things that after growing up, because that's what my father did. That's most of how
Right.
we spent, the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Would be going to, this random town with a failed sewage system,
Mm-hmm.
or failing sewage system. And I can tell you now that I can drive down the road
Mm-hmm.
and I can literally go that direction, failing sewage system.
Mm-hmm.
That direction, failing sewage system. Like it is a smell. It is a very specific smell.
Mm-hmm.
And it's typically like sometimes that's communities haven't even figured it out yet.
Right. But that's
Um,
because you grew up in it. But
yeah,
and here's the thing that West Virginians need to be paying attention to, and because these PSDs were put in by federal funds. The power system that is in West Virginia was put in by federal funding and federally owned, but now that we have a corporation controlling it, that doesn't make sense.
well, and I think it does potentially bring up, and this may have more to do with a current funding they're receiving,
Yeah,
not inherently the fact that they were publicly, governmentally
right,
funded to start with.
right,
Um, I think it has more to do with they have a very specific agreement that is they're still under.
right,
Um, that this is new money. And I'd say a lot of that is probably intended to keep like West, and I'm not saying they have ever done this, but to keep an entity like West Virginia American Water
right.
from, influencing a board
Mm-hmm.
into pulling out tons and tons and tons of money
Right,
in government grants, government contracts, government whatever,
right,
and then absorbing it
right.
and being like, ooh, money bags.
Mm-hmm.
Because I would say our federal government would not like the situation where they have just taken, for instance, Kanawha Falls PSD, handed
Mm-hmm.
them a truckload of money to go
Mm-hmm.
fix their problems or to maintenance, manage whatever the system.
Right,
Then along comes West Virginia American Water, who effectively seizes everything and total control and can decide to do whatever they want to, not with
right,
money.
right. And then this affects small towns, small people, and I find it horrific that the PSD is trying to force a small, and these are the ones that have like, I don't know,
Yes,
yeah,
Public Services Commission.
right,
And that gets weird to keep going back and forth. Is Public Service District, which is
mm-hmm,
like Kanawha Falls, and the Public Services Commission, which is the state agency that tends to be the dictator of public service districts. It's the
right,
mothership, or it's supposed to be, as well as a consumer protection division.
right.
It's a little bit of
Unless
everything
it's
all
for
in.
like, they were the ones that signed the agreement with Verizon that became Frontier. They were the ones that signed the deal with Optimum and made them exclusive to the state. And it's like,
Yeah,
what are you doing?
yeah. The Public Services Commission for West Virginia has been really friendly to privatizing and throwing our services
Right.
to major corporations, definitely jerking them out of the hands of local communities.
Yeah.
And generally, it's I mean, it's been interesting recently. We've seen a little bit less of the rubber stamping of like rate increases and things like that,
Mm-hmm.
because all we ever hear in
Mm-hmm.
West Virginia from our public service or our utility companies.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to make that distinction as we're talking Verizon, West Virginia American Water, Appalachian Electric Power, Optimum, you name it. So the companies, the major companies that have been appointed to provide utility services, all we
Mm-hmm.
ever hear is rate increase.
Right.
We always hear their heart up. We always hear that, yes, we understand the infrastructure is struggling or failing,
Mm-hmm.
and we're going to fix it. But we need another 1%, 12%, 18%,
15%.
20%, whatever.
Yeah.
It's all we ever hear is year after year after year after year, and it's notable that the last couple of years seems to be the first time the Public Services Commission has caught on
Mm-hmm.
that you keep coming back to us for more money.
Mm-hmm.
You keep citing the same reasons for more money,
Right.
and none of the problems that you cited as reasons for more money that we gave you
Mm-hmm.
are fixed.
Right.
Like, we're handing you the authority to raise rates, and then we're getting complaints left, right, and center from the
Mm-hmm.
people who live in the communities you said you were going to fix,
Mm-hmm.
telling us that, oh, it's not fixed. Not only
No.
is it not fixed, it's now worse.
Right.
Oh, because no one did anything. Like, no one even rolled a truck out to be like, yeah, we should probably fix that.
Right.
Yep, that's a problem. We should fix it.
Yeah.
Um,
But they don't.
yeah. And for the especially West Virginia, we are particularly vulnerable in this aspect. Is that with many of these smaller communities dwindling in population, they're
Mm-hmm.
out of their heyday. We are starting to run into a major problem
Right.
in which they are very vulnerable both to the failing infrastructure and to the predatory behavior of massive utility companies who then the public service or the utility companies come in and they can't justify the cost.
Right.
You want us to spend $2 million for 20 customers, and it's going to be 100 years before they end monthly services.
Right.
Make us $1 million.
Yeah. Which
Like,
is.
why would we throw fiber to 20 customers
Mm-hmm.
at millions of dollars of expense? We're never going to see that money. And it's
Well,
like,
and
that's what the Public Service Commission is supposed to do,
mm-hmm.
is regulate the utilities
Mm-hmm.
so that we don't have that predatory behavior.
Supposed to do. They don't often do it. They do what's best is for their bottom line. I mean, but these exclusive deals, exclusive contracts, can I say are bullshit and should be
Yeah.
stopped?
Well, and they were fed to the PSC under the idea that if you give us exclusivity as sole
Mm-hmm.
provider, we
Right.
can justify the costs and
Mm-hmm.
we'll provide the work. And again, we've been in this struggle for probably like 40 some years now,
At
30 at
least.
least. Um, of yeah, we'll take care of it, and they don't.
And they don't.
Give us exclusivity, we'll fix it. If you give us more money, we'll fix it. If you give us
Yeah.
government grant, we'll do it,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't occur. You
Right.
see major metros get all of the money and all of the upgrades because those customers are going to pay it back in
Mm-hmm.
increased service charges, and better services, more services, whatever. But then you start looking at your smaller, tinier communities. They're still where they were.
Yeah. Well, look at us. Granted, we have great cable internet when it works.
Well, and
One,
that is a huge problem in West Virginia is that we have a at this point inexplicable above ground system.
right.
That given the weather events that we have,
Hmm.
it's becoming really hard to justify an above ground system,
Right.
because it is a continuous problem. It is a problem to have smaller communities that you're just sending a line of poles to,
Hmm.
and then something happens in the middle of that, and you cut off a community of 100 people.
Yeah. And a
What's the
heartbeat.
priority?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, we'll get to the common phrase we hear: "We will get to you when we get to you."
Yeah.
You know,
And you'll love it when it's done.
you'll love it
Like
when
that
it's done.
needs.
That's the other thing. Yeah.
That should be the slogan for West Virginia. You'll just love it when it's done.
Uh-huh. Yeah. At least
Uh,
that was the Roads to Prosperity promise.
yeah.
That so far, I don't know anyone who had a Governor Jim Justice Road to Prosperity's project done in their
Hmm.
neighborhood that loved it when it was done.
Right.
Not one. I don't know anyone.
No.
Like, if you did, please let me know. I would like to be able to say I know someone who was like, hell yeah, we got what we wanted.
Hmm.
Everyone else that I've ever known, that I've run into, have brought it up. It's that like long ragged sigh of like, you really don't want to bring this up.
Right.
Like, it's a collection of horror stories. It is a collection of, well, they did what they said they were gonna.
Hmm.
You got to get real wonky with your interpretation of some words.
Right. Well, it's like the road project that took over most of our front yard.
Yeah.
And
Hey,
killed two
Governor Jim
trees.
Justice, Road to Prosperity's roadwork project.
Hmm. Yeah. We were told we would love it when we saw it. We were told, um, you know, that it was going to make it easier to live here. So many benefits for the children. And we're like, no, well, y'all, at least put fucking sidewalks because we're going to have increased foot traffic. Oh, no, you won't. The gate will be closed. There won't be any. Baloney. There are more people on this street that don't live here than the ones that do. Hmm.
Like, it's been interesting.
It's been
As
interesting.
well as the fact that it was amazing to me.
Hmm.
Now, there have been a few things that were amazing with that project. The first one was I had never, and I don't think we've talked to anyone who's ever heard this scenario before. Our city annexed the property,
Hmm.
because we were originally county dwellers way
Hmm.
back when. The city annexed the property. The state said, but you can't have the road.
Yeah.
You don't own the roads. It's a state road,
Hmm.
city property. What? So that scenario was new and different, and a surprise to me,
Hmm.
because never did they ever contribute to the road.
Right.
Like, the road was in a subdivision. The road was built. The actual physical, there is a paved road here, was built by the residents of the subdivision, not by the state.
Right.
And it was maintained by the residents of the subdivision and
Hmm.
not by the state.
Yeah.
There were no state services provided,
Hmm.
but then they suddenly had the right to claim, that the state owned the equivalent of twin 12-foot lanes, so one 12-foot lane in each direction,
Hmm.
plus 25 feet
Right.
in easement. Again, was a shock and a surprise to
Mm-hmm.
the residents of the subdivision,
Mm-hmm.
especially given that like that was never what was done.
No, because
Um,
I remember us collecting. The neighborhood people paid for the road to be paved originally. The neighborhood paid for, and we don't have an HOA. I think that was our first. I think that was the first subdivisional mistake.
or not,
Yeah.
in any which way it goes.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. Well, it made it much harder without an HOA to go
Mm-hmm.
after the state and be like, oh no, you didn't.
Yeah.
But from the perspective of like managing the road, which we're
Mm-hmm.
originally talking about, someone dumped gravel.
Yeah.
That's it. They ran a gravel road into a subdivision,
Mm-hmm.
built houses on it, and the state swears up and down they have an original plan for the subdivision that calls for,
Mm-hmm.
50 feet of road.
Right.
Oh, well, 25 feet of road and, an easement on each side.
Right.
So a 50-foot right down the middle.
Right.
As well, one, that's cute. There's no down the middle. But, anyway, we'll let that slide. But it's like where, like, you didn't hold the subdivision developer accountable for a road.
Right.
You saw what the subdivision developer actually did, regardless of any plan. You said nothing. You did nothing
Mm-hmm.
for the community for what, 60 years?
No, I would say, well, he came through and put up the deer gate.
Again, that's on the back of the property, has everything to do with 19,
Right.
not with the actual road through the subdivision.
Right.
And that's what, like, I'm getting real specific on, like,
Mm-hmm.
you didn't do anything for the subdivision regarding a road in the subdivision
Right.
for
Nope.
the entirety of the subdivision's existence.
Right.
And then you strangely held on to the road
Mm-hmm.
when the city annexed us.
Right.
And then you're in this weird catch-22, or we are. You're not.
Right.
You do whatever you want to do, state of West Virginia, because that's what you've done all along. Because, like, yeah, we have snow removal as long as school's in session.
Yeah.
The minute classes stop.
Right.
What snow removal? We don't owe you snow removal.
Yeah.
Excuse me? Like, you can't run a truck through here? Like, I'm not saying every 15 minutes.
Right.
You can't run a truck through here?
Well, what gets me even more so is if the city street cleaner used to come through and clean the paved road that we paid to pay, the neighborhood paid to pay,
Paid
would
to
come
pay.
clean the paid to have paved.
Mhm.
But if it's not a city
Since
road,
they built this?
Yep.
And I think there was confusion with the city. They didn't realize for a while they didn't own it.
Yeah.
Like, they annexed us, and I think the city was trying to do their best,
Mm-hmm.
thinking that you are now part of the city, you should be receiving city services.
Mm-hmm.
Only to suddenly realize they don't own this. They have
No.
never owned it. The
Right.
state retained control of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's like, well, if that's not a city road,
Mm-hmm.
you don't get city services. You
Right.
get treated like a city resident in all other regards.
Oh yeah.
Like you're responsible for
Taxes,
city
fees,
ordinances,
all that.
taxes, all of it. But you don't get anything road related
Right.
because you're not there.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's been a whole mess and a half. And then, like, nobody has the original plans because, of course, the developer conked out, died, is rotting somewhere in the bottom of a field. Sorry, I'll put it that way.
Yeah, well, I mean, and that happens. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, God love a subdivision developer, but they don't live forever.
No.
And it was in a heyday when they're
No.
slapping up subdivisions as fast as they can.
Right. It was after the war, baby boomer era. I mean, my house is 1952. It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the house I grew up with
Yeah.
was like, and believe me, it was. I'm trying to remember what year it was built. It was built before this one, long before
Mm-hmm.
this one was.
Right.
And even then, the sub developer had an entire plan, an idea of how that community was going to work.
Mm-hmm.
And all it ultimately did, I mean, there were originally some of it did work the way that it was planned. Things change,
Right.
and it became a weird collection
Mm-hmm.
of like we know what the intention was,
Mm-hmm.
um, but it became a collection of sub developer held parcels,
Right.
little itty bitty parcels,
Yeah.
um, that when he did die,
Mm-hmm.
uh, his family, somewhere between didn't want to continue being in sub-development management.
Right.
Part one, part two, didn't really know what they were doing in that regard,
Right.
and we're closing the business.
Yeah.
So all these little tiny pieces and parcels, and we're talking like what's typically referred to as a postage stamp.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, like it's not big enough. You do not have enough offset on the sides to plant a flagpole,
Mm-hmm.
let alone a flag. But all these little tiny parcels just went for back taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And through all of the subdivisions this man built in his life, suddenly you had tons
Mm-hmm.
of you know wastewater clean out, sewage clean out. Again, they're little tiny parcels that are still retained by the subdevelopment. All of these went for back taxes. You had people showing up going, I want access to my property. I paid $20 in back taxes.
Mm-hmm.
And, I want to be able to put a road to my property.
Right.
Your property isn't big enough to set a lawn chair on.
Right.
Literally, we had this problem in our backyard. With a tiny sewage clean out. It's a little teeny tiny triangle in the middle of the property maps
Mm-hmm.
owned by the developer, picked up for back taxes. Like my parents had to spend thousands to get rid of this.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a nuisance purchase,
Right.
back tax property.
Right.
I'm not entirely thrown off on the purchasing property for back taxes concept, but when you know what you're buying and you know you're buying a postage stamp
Right.
and you're going to harass the owners of the adjoining property,
Mm-hmm.
just to make their lives horrible,
Right.
I have a problem with that. Like, I can totally understand if you buy a piece of property, you solely, individually, one, and you intend to live on it. Like, I'm
Right.
cool with that. You know what you bought, you know how big it is, it has a house on it, whatever. I can make my peace with that.
Right.
Um, that's someone's very unfortunate luck.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but to professionally do this by hundreds of them
Right.
and then cash out orders of magnitude over what you spent,
Mm-hmm.
it's ridiculous.
Well, it's ridiculous. It's insane. I really think the easement laws need to be redone. Um, Maybe even the property laws, because it seems like now the property owners have no rights to protect their property. They took, they took, when I bought this, it was a quarter of an acre. They took at least 30 feet to the back that I still pay taxes on but cannot use.
Yep.
And they took what, 10 feet in front of us?
Roughly
Yeah,
solid 8 foot
solid 8 foot.
shaved off the front.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's and the loss of enjoyment of the property. Like it is hard to have people over for the entire subdivision now.
Right.
Not just us, not just us. Like
Yeah.
you could easily park 4 cars at this house. It was no big deal. No big deal. We had more than enough space for 4 cars. Now we're in a situation of we have room to park two.
Right.
In the driveway. That is not what it was supposed to have been. But okay, fair enough. And then what they did with the road design, what they laid down, was an on the street parking on, that kind of mishmashes back and forth for the whole subdivision, because we no longer have front access to our property.
Right.
We don't have enough property to do that. And yeah.
Yeah.
It's again, I appreciate if it was truly done that way, that the sub developer went through and said, this is the sub development plan and this is what we're supposed to do. That's not what he built.
No.
That's not what he did.
Right.
And to then try to claim that, well, that's what he said on paper. Really? Come drive through here.
Show me the documents.
It's nowhere near
this is what they would never do, is show us the documents. Show us the plans you supposedly have.
Yeah.
Well, we'll just do right of domain. And it's like, well, that's cute.
Yeah,
you already done that once
we're
here.
going to take it anyway.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, again, if at least under eminent domain, we would have been properly compensated for our loss.
Right.
Not told that you didn't lose anything because you never had it.
Right.
It's like, excuse me?
Right.
Like, how does that work?
Well, and what I find interesting, now granted, me and Techy opposed this in multiple interviews, listed complaints, held them to the fire. Every other neighbor got anywhere from $500 to $1,000 buyout. Not us.
Nope. Never saw a dime. We're told that we would like it we would love it when it was finished.
Right.
We have not. It's been a mess.
Right.
It's been a mess. But
it's been totally a mess. All right, so let's figure out if you're an asshole.
All right.
Wanting to go back to work when you're on PTO.
All right, waiting for that article.
Coming at you.
Yay! All right. So, am I the asshole for refusing to come into work during PTO because a coworker keeps pressuring me? First post, honestly, not entirely sure what I'm doing here, but I've got a decent enough idea, I hope. I have been working a part-time job at a supermarket for nearly 4 years now. Every year, and my family do this thing where we all go out camping for a week for my mother's birthday. So we always do our best to synchronize and schedule our PTO for the same week off so we can go up to camp. This time, however, my boyfriend, who lives halfway across the country, suggested he could get that same week off at his own place of work to come up to visit instead. This would be the first time we would be in the same place since we started dating. The general manager told me I don't have to worry and that I can still get the PTO even if I'm staying home to spend time with my boyfriend. However, one coworker, who joined only a few months ago, keeps dropping not so subtle hints to outright telling me that I should be coming in anyway, since I'm not actually going camping with my family, and that I should be there to work my hours since, quote, you only work part-time, You have no excuse not to work a few extra hours since you're not going anywhere. Meanwhile, General Manager has continued to try and reassure me to just stop worrying about what he says since the PTO was approved before he even started working. Aside from that, we have a new hire whose timing meant we wouldn't have to worry about cover, but he ended up getting hurt, and according to coworker, he will be out for the week. But I have not been told exactly how bad the injury was. Just 2 days ago, the day before the new hire got hurt, coworker confronted me and basically laid into me, trying to get me to come into work on my PTO right in front of both the new hire and another coworker, both of which later told me his actions were uncalled for, though nothing else has come of it yet. No matter what I said or told them, it basically just came back to me being lazy and not stepping up, despite me being the one that got them the job only a few months ago. I keep trying to tell them that I already got the PTO approved, and General Manager tells me not to come in, but coworker continues to claim that I'm lazy and leaving the new hire without any help. Am I the asshole for refusing to cancel my paid time off?
No.
No, you're not the asshole.
Right.
Oh my God, are you not the asshole? Please, if you are listening and this sounds familiar, be this person.
Yeah.
Your paid time off is yours to use however you want to use it. I love the TikToker who calls it please tell the others time off.
Right.
That's it. That's what you're doing. I am not paid time off. I am not going to be here on these days. Figure it out.
Right.
We as Americans, especially, and I assume this is in the United States,
Yes.
We have lost the idea that our time off is our time off. Not only the fact that we earned it, because with companies you are not given time off. You earn it, you accrue it at a rate commensurate to what you work. Like there's a schedule, you get so much per year you're there, yada yada yada. You get X amount per period you work. Stop trying to always be there. Stop feeling guilty for taking your time off. It does not matter what you use it for. And if even if you had never intended to go camping, you have the week off. It is pre-approved. You did not have to tell anyone why you're taking it off. It's yours to take. Take it. Do not, and I mean this not in a suggestion, please go do the following things. But in a, I don't care if you snort coke off whores' asses for a week. That's how you spend your PTO. It's your PTO to do with at your jobs. There is no invalid reason to take PTO.
And I totally agree with that. Now, granted, I don't get PTO, but I've started taking time the fuck off. And I'm enjoying my job a lot more.
Yeah, well, I all have to appreciate the fact that time off is one of the most valuable things to making your time on better.
Yeah.
You cannot work endlessly without seeing a decrease in performance. It is one of the most screwed up things about working in the U.S. Is that this puritanical hard work bullshit has increasingly led to the idea that it is a weakness, it is a problem, It is something to be mitigated and handled,
Right.
and limited as much as possible for people to not work.
Right.
That it should always be working. And the reality is there is a point in which it becomes not only diminishing returns,
Right.
negative returns.
Right.
We have literally demonstrated time and time again that after about 50 hours a week, not only do you, like, one, over 40 hours, you start to see diminishing returns for any.
Right.
After 50 hours, you actually are seeing negative returns.
Right.
And that's just in your hourly weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we will push employees to work 60, 70, 80, 90 hours a week.
Mm-hmm. And keep pushing.
And keep pushing. Sleep when you're dead.
Right.
Rest when you're dead. But additionally, we then turn around and we treat it like some kind of magical privilege to take time
Right.
off.
Yeah, and it's not.
When
It's a
for
requirement.
most employees, it's not even going to cover the bare minimum they need
Right.
of rest
Right.
to be productive. Like it is, and I understand if you have this deeply puritanical mindset, you've grown up with the thought that you only become productive by working more, not
Mm-hmm.
less. The
No.
reality, the science, the research, the you name it, is solely centered around the realities that that's not true.
Right.
The most productive, creative, imaginative, hardworking people in the world who
Mm-hmm.
get more accomplished than anyone else work
Right.
less.
Yep. And they're finding that it's even like, I think the last I saw was like 30 hours a week, work week. And it was like in Norway or something. The company's profit went up 20-fold.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have time for people to rest and recharge and come back at it.
Right.
They are not as stressed.
Yep.
They're able to meet their life demands.
Right. And are able to actually feel like they're producing something. So the poll is up. Go ahead and vote.
Yes.
Your options are, of course, yes, you're the asshole for not giving up your PTO. No, you're not the asshole. Everyone is shitty here. Or you're in a dill pickle, meaning you can't solve it. They can't solve it. Nobody's in the wrong, but it's just a situation. All right. So we're going to take on this Ask Gay Bros, and we will make it as PG as possible.
Oh, boy. All right. So Ask Gay Bros over 30, and this one's Flair 30 to 34, seeking advice for sexually incompatible relationship. Labeling not safe for work, just in case, but it's pretty tame. I, 32, have been with my boyfriend, 29, for 2.5 years, and the sexual chemistry has never been consistently good. I've got a medium high libido, and he's somewhere in the low medium low territory. On paper, we're great for each other, and we love each other a lot. I cook yummy dinners for him. We are there for each other for emotional stuff, and we share a lot of mutual hobbies together, similar life goals, etc. Throughout our relationship, I've never been sexually satisfied. Not only the frequency, but he rarely initiates, and there's never any flirting or suggestiveness in the day to day. He's also really vanilla. Doesn't like some of the things that I'm into, and wouldn't do things, some things, even if I asked. I keep myself fed and dressed nice, but he's content to just snuggle on the couch and go about life with sex confined to 30 minutes in the bedroom, 1 to 2 times per week or less. We've talked about this openly and honestly, and the tough thing is that each time I make a request for him to initiate more, or be more forward, or just grab me once in a while, He meets me halfway for a week or two, and then it inevitably peters out. I don't blame him for this. It's impossible to force what isn't there. This leads to resentment on my part, feeling lost or like I'm wasting my sexual happiness, and I start to feel really bad for wishing he was different. I've never and will never cheat, but I am envious of my friends' relationships where they have sex really frequently. I often fantasize about what it would be like to be in a relationship where love language and sexual chemistry were matched better. We both acknowledge that sexual incompatibility is a big part of a healthy relationship, um, but we will work on it. And if we can't get to a good spot, we could end things amicably. I love him so much for having those frank conversations. I believe him when he says he wouldn't resent me, but my heart breaks at the thought of making him sad, at him being alone, or at not having him in my life as much. I know I can't have my cake and eat it too. It's a choice I just have to make, and life sucks sometimes. If anyone else has made it through a breakup like this and stayed good friends, I'd love to hear that it's possible. Thanks.
Well, it's not only like breakup's not your only option here, but I think
Well,
there has
I
to be
mean,
some. There has to
I
be
was
some
gonna say,
acceptance.
I think sometimes people like out where they're at,
Right,
and you're at breakup. You're at like OP's at like we're done.
right,
Like I don't think OP meant to say that way, and then it's one of those. It's a Freudian
right.
slip.
Yeah,
Kind of said exactly where you're at. Like I'm
right.
done.
Well, not only are you done, but you're not. I understand you can say you're done, but you've got to expand some things before you go any further. One, you got to get a little bit more detailed in your shopping habits. If you don't want a grocery driver to the store, you don't buy a freaking wagon. Same thing with a relationship. If it like you're too far into this, y'all should have been done, overly done, completely done, out of the park done, somewhere.
Well, I mean, yeah, 2.5 years is a long time to keep going. Well, everything's okay,
Yeah,
except this really
right,
important thing to me.
right,
That's but again, life happens, and sometimes that occurs, and sometimes your first relationships are just like that. It's really hard to break up.
right,
It's like you keep thinking, well, it can get better,
right, or
which is not untrue.
right, and it
It
can.
can, but it doesn't really sound like either of you are going to move on
Well,
that.
it sounds like two things are going on here, and those two things can be very troublesome in general. Troublesome thing number one is there's a lot of promises that I'll work on that, or well, we can try that, and it doesn't happen. That's
Okay.
lying, point blank lying, you know. And then there needs to be some frank discussions of what your minimum is. Like, what do you need from them minimally? Like, what's your bare minimum? What's the like? If you will just do X, then that works great for me. You know, if you
Um,
will salvage this,
yeah. Well, I mean, without dictating to someone else that like you're gonna do this or else,
right?
because sometimes that's sort of how that comes across.
Mm-hmm.
I think you also have to accept that like there's a I want that for you
Mm-hmm.
kind of moment occurring there.
Right.
And it's not that the request is unreasonable, it's just that
Right.
that's not really where their partner is.
Right.
And sometimes that can be unresolved relationship issues. Sometimes that can be libido. Sometimes, and one of the really wild things to learn in your 20s and 30s
Mm-hmm.
is that the myth of the ever ready man
Mm-hmm.
is untrue.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a great joke, it's lovely punchline, it's fucking hilarious.
Right.
Really, it is. But the reality is, we're not knuckle dragging cavemen.
Right.
Um, and it is more complex, and we pay a lot of attention for women
Mm-hmm.
about, sex doesn't start in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
It starts in the morning. It
Yeah.
starts when you don't load the dishwasher. It starts when you don't bother to do, like, contribute to the relationship. It starts when and more importantly, it doesn't start.
Yeah.
This not
Then
loading
there's
the
also the
dishwasher,
mental
not
health
taking
side of things.
responsibility, not getting the bills paid, fucking off in your career,
Mm-hmm.
like creating instability and a laundry list of tasks for one partner,
Right.
all leads to, like, oh, I want to have sex at 10 p.m. is, I'm tired, I have a headache, and I don't want to, like, don't touch me. Like,
Right.
I'm
And
tired, stressed, I'm handling all these things, and,
mhm,
but we talk about that for women.
mhm.
We never talk about that for men. Is
Well,
that
and
a
the
lot?
other thing we never talk about is men's health. If a man is under too much stress, if a man is not drinking enough water, if a man is not getting enough exercise, if a man is not maintaining his body chemistry, it ain't there.
So yeah, I think before you get to the breakup, maybe take some time to, one, do a checkup,
Hmm.
make sure there's not some other things going on. Because
Right.
29 is a little on the young side.
Yeah.
If we're talking about, like, a hormonal imbalance or a body chemistry issue,
Hmm.
that there could be something going on there.
Right.
That's like, okay, you know, at least encourage the idea. Maybe you want to treat that. Maybe you want to see if that exists. So that would be a first. The second is, like, look around the rest of your relationship. And I
Hmm.
know from experience, your late 20s and early 30s are really weird point.
Hmm.
Your, like, your boyfriend, 29, let's assume some averages here, out of college, 5 years into a career, roughly, or in grad school, just out of grad school, or working on a doctorate, or working a very low paying job. Like, those
Right.
are your options at 29, depending upon, did you get, like, did you do anything after high school? Okay, if you did, you're at best 5 years into a career, give or take. um, or you're just entering, you're still working through the internships and the whatever.
No.
That's a super stressful time. And it's like,
Right.
sex, last thing on the brain. Relationship, kind of low burner. Like, you're trying to build the thing.
Hmm.
That's a serious consideration. Additionally, if you're, because you're talking about they only want to snuggle up on the couch, why?
Yeah.
Is that just who they are? Like, you have a values mismatch? Like, they're a homebody, you want to go out and party? Like, do they constantly feel like you're dragging them around?
Hmm.
Like, again, let's kind of hack through this. Like, you
Right.
have mutual hobbies, and that's great, similar life goals, that's
Right.
awesome. But do you actually, like, did you fail a stumbling block here of recognizing that, like, one of you just wants to stay home,
Hmm.
and you're constantly dragging them out? They're an introvert, they're like, please let me have my blankie for it. And
Hmm.
you're pulling them out, let's go here, let's go there, let's do this other thing. And, like, even without, and especially if it's on top of any kind of hormonal issues,
Hmm.
you're draining that battery of social interaction,
Right.
including sex. Like, I'm not interested. Like, I've dealt with all the people. I feel all the ick. I'm done. Get away from me. Stop touching me. Don't look at me.
Right.
Like, I just want to go read a book and be in my blankie for it.
Right.
And if, again, especially for introverts, if you're not contributing to that time, that is
Mm-hmm.
very crucial, very important for
Right.
them to recharge and be able to people,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see some similar effects.
Right.
You're going to see the low, like, it's going to come across that way.
Yeah.
Because interacting with other people is exhausting, even if you love
Right.
them.
Right.
So yeah, I think you're jumping the gun on the breakup. I think you need to, like, kind of roll a perception check here
Right.
of like what's really going on and being really honest about like who are you as individuals,
Mm-hmm.
what do you need from the relationship, and how can you both get that, and then take some time. It's not going to fix it tomorrow. It's going to require work from both of
Mm-hmm.
you to see, okay, is that what the problem's been?
Right.
You
Right.
know, and there are other life stressors that sometimes occur, that are, so to speak, less controllable.
Right.
Um, you might need therapy for that. You
Yeah.
you may also just be going through, so to speak, a terrible phase,
Mm-hmm.
um, in which money's tight, bills are high, everything's going up in cost,
Right.
everything's kind of feeling scarce.
Right.
Um, we see this in the general animal world,
Right.
that if you can't find food, you can't find shelter, getting laid is low priority.
Right.
And two people sharing the exact same life can have totally different experiences.
Exactly.
That, hey, this is pretty good. I'm not really worried. Like, the bills get paid when the bills get paid. And, like, we rock it.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be one person's mentality, and another person is sitting there like, oh my God, I feel like I am driving in a wall with no brakes. Like
Mm-hmm.
100 miles an hour, I am about to slam into the cartoon wall, you know, and it's stressful.
Right. It's very stressful.
So I would take some time, even if this is the end of this relationship. I think you're going to potentially learn a lot.
Mm-hmm.
If nothing else, making sure that you have similar libido,
Mm-hmm.
being an important one if you're going into a next relationship, and the things that you need to know about a partner
Right.
so that you can better accommodate for the, like, what's this going to look like long term? Like,
Right.
what are our thoughts about money and finances and stress level and education and career, and how do these things influence us beyond, oh, well, you have a great degree, or oh, you don't
Mm-hmm.
have one, or
Right.
oh, you have a really nice paycheck, or you don't.
Right.
I think sometimes we don't necessarily take the time,
Mm-hmm.
especially in our 20s and 30s,
Yeah.
to really understand the impact that the seemingly innocuous thing,
Right.
that's just like a value, um, really can play in the long-term success of a relationship.
Right.
And I think it contributes a lot, especially when you're looking at like so many divorces are caused purely by money.
Mm-hmm.
Poor people are getting divorced over money. Your middle class is getting divorced over money. Your rich are getting divorced over money.
Right.
It's crazy that you can be one of the wealthiest people in the world
Right.
and be divorced over money,
Yeah.
because your take on it, if it doesn't match with your partner,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter how much money you have, it's gonna
Right.
be an issue.
Right.
Now, sometimes it gets into different issues than we don't have enough.
Mm-hmm.
And it moves more into the, like control. You
Mm-hmm.
don't want your partner having access to your money. You've got a prenup on top of
Right.
everything. Leave them financially, functionally destitute,
Mm-hmm.
hanging on a string.
Mm-hmm.
Like we see that in some of the really big, like, billionaire divorces.
Right.
That when you look at them, like there was one recently, it was I popped in my feed, so I don't know if it was a legit thing or not, but the concept is the same.
Right.
Which was a spouse who, because of like trust and prenup and everything, was getting nothing in a divorce.
Right.
The house wasn't a marital asset. The silverware wasn't a marital asset. Nothing was a marital asset. It was all in a trust.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing. And then whatever the trust didn't cover, the prenup covered. So screw you.
Yeah.
I like it is a wild, wild world of finance,
Mm-hmm.
and I, sometimes it's just financially nice while it lasts.
Right.
Like in the case of being a spouse of someone who's ultra rich, it's nice while it lasts, and then
Mm-hmm.
once you want to leave because of
Yeah.
whatever, there's nothing. Like
Right.
it is iron plated. You are not touching the money.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a real struggle sometimes to realize that someone came in, put 20, 30 years into a marriage, and they leave with nothing.
Nothing. Hi, Nancy. Yeah, and it's really difficult, especially with prenups and different organizations and different situations. But it's also sometimes difficult just saying, look, I need X, Y, and Z. This is my minimum. What's your minimum? You need 2 hours on the blankie, and I get told I look pretty in the morning. Cool, we can take that for minimum. Or
Yeah,
not, and then you got to walk away.
yeah,
Or renegotiate the relationship in general. Opening
and
the
there's
relationship with a
options there
libido mismatch.
too. Yeah, there's options there too. Like, and especially for someone saying, "I don't want to cheat,"
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to.
Right.
Like, there's different options than cheating.
Right.
Like, cheating is what you do when you choose
Mm-hmm.
to go out and get what you want, regardless of
Mm-hmm.
what your partner wants
Well,
or what you've discussed and agreed to.
right.
Um, you can rework it. I
Yep.
hate to be like slap some poly on it and like it's the panacea. And you don't have to call it poly. It doesn't have to be poly.
Yeah.
It can be whatever you want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And especially for gay bros.
Yeah.
Hi, gay bros. Um, oh, Nancy, we will get to that one in a second. That is a
Mm-hmm.
very important comment that I want to get to.
Okay.
Um, but you can't just necessarily, or you don't necessarily have to conform to the ideas of like straight marriage.
Mm-hmm.
Like gay men have been doing relationships long before Oberfeld.
Mm-hmm.
Long before Oberfeld.
Yeah.
It does not have to look like anything you were taught.
Right.
And there were couples that had many couples
Right.
had very successful relationships that would leave straight people scratching their heads
Right.
because it's like, wait, you did what with who with what?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, if everyone involved here is okay and happy and they're consenting adults,
Mm-hmm.
do what you need to do. It doesn't
Yeah.
have to look like
Right.
someone else's idea. And that's a
Mm-hmm.
big one for your 20s and 30s is learning this lesson.
Right.
There's no one right way.
Right.
There's many right ways. There are many
Yeah.
wonderful ways.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the problem,
Mm-hmm.
is what you want is outside this
Mm-hmm.
convention.
Right.
And that alone can create enough stress to just destroy a relationship.
Right. All right. Let's
All
hit
right.
those.
Yeah, I want to hit Nancy's comment and go, no. Here's the thing with Blue Chew, Cialis, Viagra, and like whatever. Those pills will help if you have arousal. They do not fix libido. They do nothing for libido.
Mm-hmm.
Which low libido is low levels of arousal in terms of infrequent arousal.
Right.
You can, it is a great joke and a great punchline and a great idea that, oh, we're going to spike his drink with Viagra and you're going to poof, magically, get what you want. Not exactly how that works out.
Right.
Not exactly how that works out. You, as a man, have to be interested. You have to be willing. You have to be like, you have to have the whole engine running together.
Right.
Now, if you have that and you're still not going up, then that's why you take the pill.
Right.
It doesn't work the other way.
Right.
If you have no interest, you're tired, you're stressed, you feel horrible, your body chemistry's out of whack, you're sick, you're whatever. You can throw that at someone and it's not going to do what you want it to do.
Right.
You may see a little bit of increase. It doesn't mean you're going to get ready for action.
Right.
I'm trying to do that as best I can. But it is a misnomer that you can just throw medication.
Right. Because medication fixes blood flow, it fixes chemistry, it fixes all that.
It
doesn't,
creates
however.
the conditions viable.
Right.
If those are physical limitations.
Mm-hmm.
It does not fix the mental side of it, the emotional side of it. Like, you can throw all the Viagra you want to at a ex-husband who hates his wife.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to get a sexual occurrence out of that. So I do like to bring that up because that is a huge misnomer.
Right.
It also is an interrelated. There's also like a lot of guys, especially in the era of sexual enhancement drugs,
Right.
actually develop through anxiety that because of the drugs, people are better partners.
Mm-hmm.
They develop a form of performance anxiety that they then end up seeking out the drugs for.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't get fixed with the drugs because it's performance anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a weird, vicious spiral. Guys who, again, like, there's only really one drug that will work.
Right.
And it is used in pornography production and has been for decades. It is called Trimex.
Mm-hmm.
And it is literally injected into the penis. And you don't have to be interested. You don't have to be anything.
Right.
Again, it's injected. Not really the situation you want the average person experiencing.
Right.
Because even within pornographic production and consenting adults who realize this is what's occurring, and that you don't have to have arousal, you don't have to be into your scene partner, you don't have to like them, you don't have to anything them. You can hate them. it comes with a cost.
Right.
So you really don't want to, like, literally, you do not want to force men to have sex in that regard.
Right.
Like, it's not, no, doesn't work out. And it creates a lot of issues for male actors.
Right.
It's one of the, like, hidden, quote unquote, dirty secrets of pornographic production. Is that it creates a lot of disconnection from themselves and their bodies and sex, and it can have a long-term negative effect on them. Like, that goes well past the porn shoot, and this becomes a thing that they need to function because they're so sexually disconnected from themselves.
Right.
So, just FYI, just a little bit of information there. Drugs don't fix non-physical problems.
Right.
And just because other people are taking it, it's not making them better.
Right.
Well, it makes them, if they have that problem, better. It doesn't make them better. Like, it doesn't make, like, Viagra does not make you a better lover. Tadalafil will not make you a better lover. It's not a performance-enhancing drug.
Right. It's more of a
how to fix a performance issue that you already have.
Right. All right. So what's in the poll? Ooh, good. Very healthy diagramic here. Now, you're not the asshole for refusing to give up your PPO to help out the new hire. It'll be left alone when, I don't know, maybe you should go in and help the new hire since you're so concerned about them.
Yep. If you're concerned, you can go.
Exactly.
All
right, guys. With that, let's go ahead and thank our patrons.
Yeah, so of course we want to thank Beverly Walker, Mika G, Brenda, Joan Owen, Shannon C, Shannon D, Lady Gwendolyn, Caitlin Bell, Devin, and Bella. If you'd like to learn more about us, the show, or how you too can become a Patreon sponsor and receive all the wonderful benefits our baristas receive, please visit us at pcspnetwork.com.
And we will see you on Tuesday, guys. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
And let's let it